Chapter 3. How does one reflect on creation? Reflection on creation means study of the original elements of which the world is composed, of the products that result from the combination of these elements, of the qualities of the constituent parts of each compound's various uses, and of the signs of wisdom exhibited in its production, such as form, shape, and proper function, and in the ultimate purpose for which it was created. Reflection on creation means becoming aware of the spiritual and physical elements of this world, its causes and effects, its rational and non-rational creatures, its inert and active materials, its inanimate objects and plants, its higher and lower parts, and realizing that the Creator may be exalted, assembled and ordered the world perfectly, divided it along clear lines, and made it in such a way that it points to Him and reflects Him, just as a work of craftsmanship reflects the craftsman who created it, or a house, the builder who built it. You should know that the whole world is made up of the material and the spiritual, so intimately mixed and fused that each of them sustains the other, like body and soul and living creatures. In all of these, the signs of wisdom exhibited are of three kinds. 1. Clear and obvious signs of wisdom which even a fool could not fail to detect, certainly not an educated person, such as the movement of the sun above the earth to illuminate the inhabited regions and to benefit the created things. The scripture says, "When the sun rises, they retreat and lie down in their lairs. Man goes out to his work and to his labor until evening. How manifold are your works, God! With wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creations." 2. Signs of wisdom which remain undetected by most people. Only the intelligent and insightful appreciate the good in them, such as death, which embraces all living things and serves the world's welfare, as our sages of blessed memory expounded. And God saw all that He had made, and behold, it was very good, and behold, it was very good. This refers to death. So too, the wise man said, "I praise the dead who have already died more than the living who still live." 3. Signs of wisdom which are observable from one aspect but hidden from another. A person of limited insight will fail to recognize them unless he focuses on them and studies them closely, such as the changing conditions of the 4 seasons of the year and the like. A wise and insightful individual will distill from this world the knowledge of its spirituality and subtle things, and using this knowledge, like the ladder, he will attain proofs of the Creator of all, may He be exalted, and devote himself to God's service. The depth of his devotion will be in proportion to the depth of his feeling for God's greatness and glory, his perception of the signs of God's goodness and mercy towards all His creatures, and his recognition that God endowed him with an abundance of favors and raised him on high before he had done anything or assumed any fine trait or character to deserve such a reward from Him. Next, he will select for himself from the physical elements of the world the things that support his body and promote his material well-being, but only enough to meet his needs and provide for his livelihood. He will give up the luxuries and precious things of this world, which turn away the heart from God, and try to work for his final home and destination after death. The world and its possessions he regards as a means of providing for his appointed day and latter end, and so he takes from it only what may accompany him on his journey. An individual who is ignorant of the ways of this world and unaware of the signs of wisdom found in it regards it as his permanent home and place of residence. He invests in it all his efforts and puts his whole heart and all his energies into it, thinking that he furthers his own interests. He does not take into account that the fruit of all his labor and all the property he has amassed will go to others during his own lifetime and after his death. Thus he totally neglects his interests in the next world. How analogous these two types are to the story of two brothers who inherited from their father land that was in need of cultivation. They divided the land into two. Neither of them possessed anything else. One of the brothers was sensible and hardworking. The other brother was the exact opposite. The sensible one realized that if he worked exclusively on his own plot of land, he would be unable to make a living and support himself. So he hired himself out as a day laborer and worked in other people's fields to earn enough to live on from day to day. After work, towards evening, he would work for an hour on his own land with intensity and vigor. When he had enough left over from his wages to keep him for a day or more, he would not work for others during the time, but would work in his own field with great energy and zest. He did not break from this regime until his land was fully cultivated. At harvest time, he gathered in his fruit and crops and lived off them all the following year. He was free to work his land as he pleased and planted more trees until it not only produced enough for his livelihood, but yielded a surplus with which he bought additional land. The foolish brother, realizing that if he worked his own land exclusively, he would not be able to support himself, neglected it entirely. He hired himself out to others as a day laborer and lived off the wages he was paid, saving nothing. When he had enough left over from his wages to provide him with food for a single day, he would take the day off to rest, loaf about, and seek amusement, never giving a thought for his own land. In his spare time on workdays, he would go to the bathhouse. His land, meanwhile, remained desolate, produced nothing, and was overgrown with thorns. Its fence was broken down, and flood waters had swept away its trees. As the wise man said, I passed by the field of a lazy man, by the vineyard of a man with no sense. And lo, it was all overgrown with thorns, its surface all covered up with thorn bushes, its stone fence broken down. An intelligent person, after reflecting on this parable, will draw a lesson from it concerning his own latter end, which is his true home, and will work for it with total commitment. For his earthly needs he will work as one does for others, only according to need, for subsistence. The fool, however, does exactly the opposite. He invests his efforts in matters of this world, and neglects his interests in the next. As the wise man said when observing the fool, I observed and took it to heart. I saw and learned a lesson.